Economic issues. As you know, Mike Huckabee says the GOP needs to reach out to lower and moderate income Americans. What do you make of his call? Sometimes a rather in-your-face call, and we all remember in the debate saying, you know, I understand the average person. Maybe not everyone does here.
I couldn't agree with him more. I mean, look, I grew up in the city of Detroit. My father spent 32 years on a line as a blue-collar UAW skilled tradesman. I paid my way through school as a Teamster loading trucks. I mean, I am that blue-collar Reagan Democrat that basically became a Republican. And I think most Republicans in this state are working-class people who basically share the values of God, guns, and guts, so to speak, to make it easy. And those are the people that Mike Huckabee is appealing to. And I think that's a constituency that Ronald Reagan really made us a majority party by bringing in those blue-collar, working-class people who shared our values, wanted less taxes, go to church on Sunday, enjoy the fishing and hunting and the great outdoors, who are conservationists versus environmentalists, who go to church on Sunday and who basically share our values. And this is where the Republican majority comes from. And I do think we've got to get back to talking about the middle class, the working class, versus just capital gains tax cuts, which, I don't know, you and I aren't going to affect us as much as an income tax cut or a change.
We have other, in '08, there will be other Republican races across the state of Michigan, most notably statewide, the United States Senate race, where incumbent Carl Levin, the senior member from our state, will no doubt seek re-election. He'll be difficult to beat.
He'll be difficult to beat, but not impossible to beat. I think the issues that are facing us nationally will be very good for us. We can draw a very big contrast to where he stands and the Republican candidates will be. We've got Andrew Rocky Ruchkowski, who ran before, who has since then been to Afghanistan and the Middle East, has come back a decorated war hero. I mean, he received a bronze star, I believe. Jack Hogendijk, former state representative, or current state representative, is also looking at running. There's a business engineer industrialist, Bart Barron, also considering running. So I think we'll have at least 3 candidates right now who are talking about it. All of them, which would be a great contrast to where Carl Levin stands on the issues and where he stands and where America ought to be.
The state House of Representatives, which is currently controlled by the Democrats by a slim margin, and which helped pass income tax increase this year. Many of these people that voted for it, including some Republicans apparently, are the subject of recalls. Is that the right way to run political life? If you don't like the way we vote, we take you back because of one vote?
Well, it depends on how important that vote is. Look, this was the largest tax increase in the history of Michigan. We've already announced today that we're looking at a $350 million excess in funds that were collected for last year already. This is an increase where the governor was talking about shutting down government, shutting down schools, shutting police posts, when in reality what we need to do is reform the way we do business in government. Overwhelming majority of the Democrats voted for it. Overwhelming majority of the Republicans voted against it. There were a few people that flipped sides on both sides, but this was basically a Governor Granholm Democratic shoved-through tax increase that I think is going to cost us more jobs at a time when we can't afford it.
Speaking of reform, as you know, there are folks working to get the Michigan fair tax on the ballot, switching from the income tax, the business taxes, to a consumption tax. Will it make it on the ballot?
I don't know. There are several ballot initiatives that are being discussed. I mean, as you're aware, it takes several 100,000 signatures needed to be collected.
What are your thoughts on the fair tax?
I think it's a very interesting proposal. I have traditionally liked the idea of a consumption tax. I think it is a fair tax, as they like to call it. I think it is progressive. It's something that works, and much of the country uses it in different, or much of the world uses it in different ways, in different manners.
Mike Huckabee is proposing it on the federal side. Will that help him?
So I don't think it'll hurt him. I think it'll differentiate him from some of the others and allow people
from
to talk
everyone
about
else.
Yeah,
no one else is calling for it.
No, and as you recall,
Republican
just this
side.
week, Rudy Giuliani introduced a huge tax proposal that would be the largest tax cut in the history of America, where he's proposing a flat 10% tax under $40,000 income and a flat 15% tax under $200,000 income. Now there's a Republican plan for you.
So do you suspect you'll retain the House?
I think we have a very good shot at taking the House back. We're 4 seats away. There are at least 10 seats that are marginally Republican. And we have a lot of Democratic state legislators who voted for the largest tax increase in Michigan's history, have not been willing to vote for the reforms necessary to live within our means. While you and I and everybody else in society is cutting back, these guys keep spending more money. The size of government has increased every single year since John Ingalls has left office under a Democratic governor and a Democratic legislature. I think we're going to have a good argument for change.
To what extent have term limits contributed to the partisan bickering and inability to get things done?
Very little, I think. You know, term limits have obviously affected kind of the long-term status of some of the members, but I would argue the reason I supported term limits, and I think a lot of us supported term limits, was that we had people who'd been there for 30 years, 40 years, and didn't care what anybody said. I like a government that is responsive. I like a government that has to go back to the people as often as possible. I think it makes sense to have a representative government where people have to go back and live within, live by the laws that they passed. So I like term limits.
In our final 60 seconds, what percent of the state is Republican today?
Again, we don't register by party, so we really don't know. But in polling, somewhere around 30 to 32% of the people identify themselves as Republican, 34 to 36, maybe in 38%, depending on the year, identify themselves as Democrats, where the rest are dog-hard independents and vote for the person and the policy.
Not really red or blue.
We are a purple state, and we're an independent state. Although I would argue conservative, which gives Republicans a great opportunity, but still a independent state. We're not a party state.
Close election on Tuesday on the Republican side?
I think that probably Mitt Romney and John McCain are going to take it down to the wire.
Saul, thanks for joining us. Saul Anuzis, Chairman of the Michigan Republican Party. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you here next time.